I'm super excited to have our next guest, Jonette Crowley. Jonette is a globally known channel, mystic, teacher, and best-selling author, and is acknowledged as a world elder and known as grandmother. She founded the Center for Creative Consciousness in the early 1990s to support humanity's spiritual awakening. As a shaman in the ancient lineage of the sun and a modern-day mystic, she explores the inner planes and maps the higher dimensions of consciousness. Her books, The Eagle and the Condor, A True Story of Unexpected Mystical Journey, and Soul-Body Fusion, The Missing Piece for Healing and Beyond, are both published in 12 languages. Jonette leads retreats and spiritual adventure tours around the world and has been to over 75 countries. Please welcome Jonette.
Yes.
Welcome to the Smoke Trail.
Thank you. It's quite a trail you have here.
I think this studio beats all other podcast studios.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Not that I'm in competition or anything.
Oh, it's spectacular. I live in Sedona, and this is spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to have you here and have a conversation. And we met not that long ago, but we had a dinner, and we started talking a little bit, and I started hearing about your story, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then I read your book, first book. I've read little snippets of the second one, more of the technique.
Okay.
But the first book, The Eagle and the Condor, which I want to talk a little bit about that journey.
I'll hold it up.
Okay,
so can
please
see
do.
It's a real book.
Yeah, it's I couldn't put it down. Like I took it with me back to Indiana, and I was hanging out with the family, and whenever I wasn't with everyone, my nose was in the book. I was like, oh my goodness, what's she going to tell us about next? But it's a fun read.
Yep.
Which I think is important because a lot of some spiritual stuff is kind of drab.
Yeah.
And drab would be the opposite of the life you have led.
It would be the opposite of me. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, let's just dive right in and talk a little bit about it. I loved, so the first experience you had, you're out backpacking in Australia, and you had this, what later you realized was your higher self or a version of you come to you and say, drop the backpack, keep walking.
So just for your audience, because you're in leadership, I was a leadership consultant for 20 years. And at that time, I was living in Australia, working for Logica, which is a big computer consulting company. And I just go backpacking with some friends every weekend. And I didn't know I had any psychic ability. I didn't know anything like that. And I'm just walking with my heavy pack, and all of a sudden it's like my reality split, and I'm still walking with my heavy pack, but this other reality opened up, and it wasn't a real reality, but it was very real. And there's this beautiful woman in white with silver hair sitting on a rock, and she telepathically says, come on over. So I come on over, and she said, she just filled me with love. And she didn't say anything at first. She just connected with me. And then it was time to go. And she said, leave your pack here. And I'm still in the real world where I want my pack, my sleeping bag, and my tent. And I kind of argued with her. I'm not going to leave my pack here. I don't have much in it. And she said, no, you have to leave it here. So in that frame, I put my pack down, and then I didn't know which way to go because it's a forest in Australia. And I said, well, kind of belligerently, well, which way to go then? You're keeping my pack, so just tell me where to go. And she said, again, telepathically, you make your path by walking.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is I and we so often are looking for maybe following someone else's path or following a path that we think is going to get us where we want. And it changed everything when I realized there is no path in front of you. The only path you see is where you've trodden.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of, two things. It gave me that advice to just keep walking and see where your path leads. But also it made me realize that I was kind of spooky psychic. And what was this? So then beings started coming to me, always at first wearing white.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out later she's kind of an aspect of white buffalo calf woman who I had never heard of, and she's not someone you would think would pop in when I live in Australia. So that's how my psychicness opened up, and just on a backpacking trip with some colleagues.
Yeah, no, and it was really, the storytelling is great. So as your story unfolded, more and more things opened up to you, and again, retrospectively, you realize that was an aspect of you or another version of you, or from a different time or different realm, which was really cool. But you were kind of a, let's say, normie. I mean, you were consultant, computer lady. You ran a sorority for a while, like the National Sorority.
It's the youngest executive director of an international sorority.
Yeah. And so what I love is that you've intertwined your spirituality with professional work over many years. And so even once you realized your abilities, and you still had one foot in the corporate world, and you were advising big companies on leadership and how to get more out of their people and how to get more things done. And you were at this parallel track of channeling and receiving all kinds of
parallel track. And the company I was with my husband was called Enlightened Leadership.
Yeah.
So at least it had enlightenment in it.
Yes.
And then and then in the evenings or on Saturdays, I'd do my channeling work for friends, and that was getting more and more exciting, and the leadership was getting more exciting.
Yeah.
So I realized that we think we have to have an either or lives. We can have an and life.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really the spirit of the smoke trail, which is how do we bring some of these topics to, call it mainstream leaders who maybe have experienced, and I know in retrospect I experienced lots of things over time that I was like, oh, that's not real, that's nothing. Everybody's experiencing different levels of knowingness and spirituality. But a lot of times it doesn't fit our paradigm, so we just say, that's just daydream, or that's just in my imagination, or that's a dream or something, and they're real. And it's, and some is your imagination, but I think a lot of people have some experiences like that. So part of the idea of this podcast, which came out of literally a conversation with someone else who said, you should do this on, and I'm like, okay. And then 3 months later, he called me back and he's like, when are you going to do your show? I'm like, well, I'm not really ready. He's like, when are you going to be ready? I'm like, you know what? You make your path by walking. And this is a good example. I just say, oh, you know what? Let's do it.
You're never ready.
And so I just started. So,
well, and look, everything's coming. It's just great to be here and to be able to help people weave leadership and management and responsibility with spirituality, because if we keep them separate, we're doomed.
Yeah.
And we've kept them separate. We've kept religion away from business, well, for the most part. And it's the integration of our spirit in our leadership that makes the difference, because you can have a leader who knows technically everything, and you've probably worked for them or had them work for you.
I've probably been fired by them because I didn't work for very many people very many times.
Sure, fired by them. Yeah, and it's just so one-sided, one-dimensional, that kind of leadership that follows the numbers and what we were taught in graduate school. And when you bring your spirit there, your heart's there, and then people trust you. They don't trust how much you know. They trust your vulnerability and your willingness to make mistakes and let them make mistakes. So, I mean, what you're weaving together is so important, and it's the calling card of future leaders.
Yeah, and look, we're all physical, mental, and spiritual beings. That's what we are, and the spiritual part gets either regulated to Sundays and people who go attend church, or just not paid attention to at all in this modern era. The mental side, I think there's a lot of self-help and a lot of psychology, and a lot of work that's been done on the mental side that I think many in leadership have tapped into pieces of that. But connecting the dots of all three is where the real power lies.
So when you say mental, like the psychological things.
Yeah. I mean, what we hold in mind tends to happen. And the higher level of consciousness, the more that is true. So if we are constantly thinking negative thoughts, beating ourselves up, we're our own worst critics typically until we get out of that. You're manifesting the things you're thinking. So, or the opposite, if you're thinking big thoughts and positive things and great outcomes, that's much more likely to happen.
Absolutely. I have this kind of scenario to share with you. When I was a leadership consultant, I went out on the ledge because it was my company with my husband, and we did muscle testing. Here we are in corporations, government, General Motors, and when I could, I said, let's try something. And I had a volunteer come up and I said, put your arm out and say, my name is Bill, but their name's Jack.
Yeah.
And of course, it's weak. And I say, your name's Jack, and it's strong. So I said, okay, in front of everybody else, let's test that. And so they could tell what's strong and what's weak. And I said, so we're going to try something. We're going to have you turn around so you can't see what the audience does. And I'm going to ask the audience to think good thoughts about you. And maybe they're your coworkers, right? Or bad thoughts. And we're going to test your arm to see if you're strong or weak. So I do this. This guy knows nothing.
Yeah.
And when I do this, I test him. His arm is weak.
Mm-hmm.
And what they realize, and when they're positive, even if they don't say that, if they think, oh my God, that Jack's a jerk, it's going to impact, he's going to continue to be a jerk. He's going to make more mistakes because your thoughts just changed his abilities.
Yeah.
So it's so true. So a leader who holds the best, is positive, sees the greatest potential, even if people screw up, is going to get more and more potential from their people.
Yeah, it really works that way. I love that you brought that up because I use it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I believe in it fully because the universe is telling us, giving us answers if we just ask. Now, as we evolve, our discernment and our ability to sense truth from falsehood and what's real and what's not become better and better. Mm-hmm. But it's always great to be able to go back and just check something, test it and say, is this right? Is this not right? I mean, it even works like in big audiences. This has been demonstrated many times. They hold up a blank envelope of, organic vitamin C, and everyone tests strong, and you put in like sucralose or some fake sweetener, and everyone tests weak. Mm-hmm. You can hold up a picture of the Buddha in an envelope, and everyone will test strong, or Jesus. Mm-hmm. And you can hold up an envelope of, say, Hitler or some character from history that clearly was negative, and everyone tests weak. So it is unbelievable. And it only works if you're, at a certain level, but it works. It's universal.
It works. Yeah,
it's powerful.
So
you brought that into the corporate training, which had to blow people away a little bit.
Because they think that if they're nice to their employee they don't like, it's going to be okay. Yeah. But if they think he's a screw-off, they're going to keep getting bad results, and that poor employee is going to be out the door and not know what hit him. What hit him was the attitude of his boss.
Yeah. A lot of the new thought leaders, kind of late 1800s, early 1900s, a lot of great writers tapped into that, and the psychology of mind and what you project becomes reality. And I really took that to heart early in my journey. I was reading a lot of that stuff, and I was like, okay, so if you hold in mind someone who you're having a real problem with, and all you think about is how difficult they are, you're mad at how they're behaving, employee, boss, whatever, it tends to continue in that same pattern. But if you you pivot your position, try this. I mean, literally try this with someone who you're having trouble with, and send them love, send them positive thoughts, think good things, and say, you know what, you're great. We're going to work out. This is all going to work out. It's for the greater good, and send love and praise to them mentally. Yeah. You will be amazed at how the interaction goes. It'll change the whole dynamic. It doesn't take very long.
When I was working with Enlightened Leadership, my then husband had come up with what he called a framework for leadership. And it was just 5 questions that refocus you. And honestly, we used it for Dell Corporation, and they saved millions of dollars within the first few weeks. And basically the questions are that. You start with, okay, in this situation that's pretty bad, what is working? Mm-hmm. And we keep saying what's wrong and who's doing it wrong. And when we said what's working, they go, Well, there's this one production line that doesn't have the problems, the inaccuracy and the defaults. What are they doing differently? And you go ask them, and they don't know what they're doing different because they've always done it that way.
Right.
But you say, all right, what makes that work? And Charlie will say, well, I just come in a little early and start doing the production line right next to the guy, and he just steps away so we don't have to shut it down. And just a million ideas.
Yeah.
What's working? What makes it work? What's the benefit
Mm-hmm.
of having it work? And then what can we do more of, better, or differently? So we put it in a structure that people could understand because they like structures.
Well, and it's people like Charlie who had the insight or the consciousness to say, you know what, if I overlap with my next guy, then it'll work smoother. And he just did it on his own. But it doesn't take very many of those Charlies to connect the dots to create a absolute productivity improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was brought into an oil company in Indonesia, in Sumatra, to help them. I mean, I'm a girl. I don't know any of this stuff. To help them save money drilling oil. And just by getting the engineers to think differently, because engineers are taught to look at the problem and fix it. Millions and millions and millions of dollars they saved. And it was their people who figured out how to do it. So that's how leadership and attitude and leadership, and you don't call it spirituality there, but it's staying focused on what's good and high rather than the lowest.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you ignore deficiencies. Actually, I had a great conversation recently. Being forthright and honest means also being able to give direct feedback and be honest about if someone's not being able to perform something, and but to coach them and to help them level up. Yeah. So that's really cool. I think it ties to when you talk about being effective, it's when you bring in spirit, it's really having alignment. And a lot of people know the words, they know all the jargon, and they'll say the right things. But energetically, everyone knows if what you're conveying is actually truth.
They absolutely know, right?
Yeah. So if and I asked you a question about shadows. You said, well, you don't focus on shadows, you focus on what's next, and that's great. But a lot of people have, a shadow side at some point in their life, or maybe we all do at some point. And it's about not ignoring it. It's about transcending it and understanding it and putting your conscious awareness to it. And until you've done that, you haven't really healed yourself, right? And so if you're not healed, you're not really able to give energetically the communication you're hoping to achieve with your family, with your loved ones, with your employees or whatever. So it's alignment.
I think that's so important because sometimes we think my spiritual growth is that's not my job. My job is this, and my spiritual growth is just my personal thing. But it so intersects. You're right, because if you're not happy and aligned, they can read it immediately, and they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, and it affects everything. It affects our own health. If you can make it a personal thing, but if you don't have alignment internally, spiritually, mentally, your physical is the output. We're actually the output. So when most of Western medicine, which all the advances are wonderful, and I say use them as appropriate, but it's all whack-a-mole. It's like, symptoms. It's symptom management. It's like, how do I make the pain go away? How do I make this go away? How do I make that? Well, that may solve the symptom, but it isn't going to solve the underlying thing. And when we read about or hear about or meet people who have literally what many would call miracle cures, they're healing from cancer, they're healing from all kinds of things. It's because of this. They've aligned their spirit, mind, and as a result, their physical ailments tend to heal themselves.
That's why I wrote my second book. After the first one, I was never going to write another one again, but I had to, which is Soul Body Fusion, because I found I had a lovely life up here, but I hadn't, I wasn't that grounded.
Yeah.
And so it's that same kind of alignment with your spirit, with the higher aspects, really into your body. And then everything's automatic. Your light just automatically shines. Good things happen. Bad things fall away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't make them happen.
Right. Yeah. You make them happen by who you become, by your beingness.
That's
right.
really well said. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I did the soul body fusion.
Yeah.
You have a couple things on your website.
Yeah.
Where I did the meditation and did it a few times, and I'm like, because I've been working on that. I think I was quite in my mind doing a lot of meditation and a lot of getting a lot of insights, but it was very cerebral. It was very up here. And over the last, say, I don't know, 6 months, I've been working much more on embodying and being like in my feet, not noticing my feet, actually being in them, being in my knees, being in my hips, being in my body. And in so doing, it's like it's really made a shift. So it was consistent with that.
You said something very helpful. I think when we are first on a spiritual growth, it tends to be cerebral. I want answers, I want clarity, and it's there. So you made the shift to go, okay, this is all nice. I have better thoughts, I'm happier, but the embodiment is when you're now a stronger battery, so you can just manifest. Things are attracted to you that just being clear about them and happy doesn't do it. So that step
which is why you're here, because I obviously I've embodied and manifested that Jonette would be here in Sedona with me, and we would be doing the smoke trail, which is fun. So, all right, now let's get a little wacky, because right now we've been kind of corporate speak a little bit, little bit of easy stuff, but more on the edge of what I think people understand to be reality. You started getting messages first from one spirit, and then later from another, and you can get them both, right? So, explain that a little bit. Like, tell me what you mean by that, and who these beings are, and how they're related to you.
Okay. How it happened was I was always stressed at my job when I was living in Sydney, Australia. So someone said, you should go to a meditation group, because I could not meditate on my own. I would just not do it. And they said, it's easier to meditate in a group. I go, okay, sign me up. So I go to this spiritualist church. I don't know what a spiritualist church is, but I learned they believe in spirits. But they had a free meditation class. But they didn't put me in the free meditation class. They put me in the spiritual development class, which I fought against, but they said, no, you belong there. And I walk in, and these women who meet once a week, they were channeling spirit guides. Now, as a former Catholic, I believe in guardian angels, so spirit guides were okay. And sometimes they would see things, they would talk. Well, in this class, all of a sudden, I would see things that would come true. Or I would say something, and I'm going, wait, who was that? And why is she saying that stuff? So, because I trusted that it was a safe place. So that's how.
So that started opening up your ability to,
possibility of it.
So I want to keep you on track, but I'm just going to ask this side question.
Okay.
So when people channel and they connect with, say, guardian angels or spirit, whatever you want to call it, they're communicating all the time, but we're not listening all the time.
They're not communicating all the time.
Okay.
They could be.
Okay.
They're not online when they're not needed.
Okay.
So what happened?
But sometimes they're communicating and we're not listening. Is that true?
And sometimes they're communicating and we're not listening.
So, but they're not always communicating.
No.
But we're not always listening either. So so just help me understand that for someone who's new to that whole realm.
So in that class, when I was sitting there trying to meditate, I saw this American Indian. And I'm thinking, I'm living in Sydney. American Indians are cool here in Sedona. And he was white headdress, and I go, why are you here? And he turned into a white eagle, a bird. And I go, okay, maybe you're my spirit guide and you're telling me your name's White Eagle. So that was exactly it. So White Eagle has been my spirit guide since like 1984, a long time.
Spirit guides were popular.
They certainly weren't popular.
They weren't on YouTube, because there wasn't a YouTube. So I don't know where they've been around forever, but it hasn't become mainstream, or
you couldn't
even
talk about it without getting the men in
you had to be kind of undercover.
But so I would then meditate, and I'd say, all right, if you're my spirit guide, come and help me meditate or bring me energies of peace. They don't always talk. Sometimes, at least for me, I didn't need words. I needed something to calm me down
Mm-hmm.
and ground me and bring me home to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So just channeling White Eagle got beautiful words, but it changed my frequency patterns
Mm-hmm.
and grounded me. So that partnership has gotten me lighter and lighter and lighter. And then, like 5 years later, White Eagle wanted a partner to help me because I must have been a tough case.
Like, we need a team here.
So
We need a team. This one's tough. Come on. I need probably one of his friends.
I called Mark,
Yeah.
and I don't know how the name came. Maybe I was just so high when the energy came, I could only say Mark, like a cough or something. So for 35 years, I've been channeling Mark, who wasn't an Indian, wasn't human, and his job is to help me go to higher and higher levels of consciousness to kind of open the gates in a non-religious way, because
Mm-hmm.
these gates to higher dimensions have been opened by Catholic mystics
Mm-hmm.
or Jewish mystics, the Kabbalah, or Indian gurus.
Yeah.
But because I'm just such an ordinary person, there weren't that many doors open that didn't have any religious pathways you had to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my work, is to open doorways that don't have any bells and whistles, that it doesn't matter what you believe. The doorways are there for everybody. So that's what I'm doing now. And it's so much fun. It's much more fun than business was.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
It doesn't pay as well, I have to say, but it's more fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, look, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I still have fun in business, but it was been de-emphasized in terms of priority for me. But no, I have a lot of fun. Otherwise, I don't do it.
Yeah.
The things I'm working on are really cool and fun. I told you I sold a brewery in Nepal to Carlsberg this summer, which, that was just cool.
Fun.
That was cool. It was because my old industry, I know that industry well, but doing a business deal in Nepal with a European company, all our legal documents were in Singapore. And, I got to go visit Buddha's birthplace and, see all kinds of really cool things. So it was just a really fun experience, and it worked out well for the client. It worked out well for the buyer, and I got to, learn something and along the way. So
we can do.
So that kind of business is fun. Like the kind that is a grind, no, I don't, want to do that anymore. I did that plenty of time.
And are you seeing executives saying, I don't want this grind anymore. I want to do something more self-fulfilling?
So what I see in my circles, and I spend a lot of time with business leaders, entrepreneurs. I guess my friend group would be like YPO type people, run their own companies. I see a growing number of them who are seeking meaning, seeking more significance, seeking purpose. They've been very successful financially. They've had a lot of accomplishments. They might have a great family. They might have kind of it all if you looked at it on paper, and yet they're like, well, is that it? What else is there? Is there more? And I think that I'm seeing more and more, like just in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been tremendous, the number of people. And so we have networks in YPO. YPO's got, 35,000 members of CEOs. It was only 5,000 when I joined. So it's like grown a lot. It's all over the world. And there's the real estate network and the construction network and the beverage, hospitality. There's all industries. And then there's all these other networks, and there's like health and wellness, and there's a psychedelics group. There's the health and wellness group does a lot of stuff with meditation retreats, and my friend Seth, who was on the program a little while back, just led a group to Bhutan, and they spent 2 weeks there, doing all kinds of amazing things. So I see that as where everyone's going, and it's not everyone, but it's a large number. The thing about why all groups have an energy. They have a certain energy level, whether it's
call it a signature, and you can feel it.
Yeah, and so if I use this example, but if you grew up in a tough neighborhood, you grew up in poverty, and your friend group started doing shoplifting and then started doing other crimes, and then you go to juvie, your friend group there becomes your friend group. You come out, your odds of continuing your path to crime and a life in that direction go up and up, and the probabilities of you getting out of that go down and down. Anyone can change at any time. It's a free world, but I think the energy group that you hang out with matters a lot. So you think about the groups you're in, or over time, and I think about things that were positive influences for me as a kid, like Boy Scouts was a really positive thing. Wrestling was a really positive thing. So things like that were like cohesive in the right direction. And then there were other groups that I was involved with that were the wrong direction. It was party groups or whatever that was just totally the wrong side of things. So YPO is a group that is a very high calibrating energy field. So if we looked at like the Hawkins scale, like it's in the 300s to some people are in lower 400s, which is like willingness, acceptance. They're not focused on negative stuff. They're focused on like, how do I improve? So it's self-improvement. So a lot of stuff is like
taking.
Yeah, definitely risk taking, but it's also like, how do I become a better leader? How do I become a better father, better spouse? There's a lot of self-help related things in it. So that's a high level starting point. But what I'm seeing is people saying, okay, it's not just about how do I become a better person. It's, is there more? What is that? So that's, I'm seeing that a lot, more and more.
And what I found is so much more came once I really did that soul body fusion and embodied who I am, because I had this life and I had this life. And once I brought it together, it's like my magnetism changed and good things would just show up in my periphery without any effort at all. So the manifestation and magnetization, I didn't even ask for it, just happened because I was more present. The big me was here. So I think that's an important part for people, is to ground their spirit and their spirituality outside their head. And you can feel it. It changes your energy field. You feel your little capillaries opening up.
Yeah, it's the subtle energies, right? And it's these that are wasn't consciously aware of them until I became aware of them. Right? And it takes practice. It's like muscles that we don't. It's like meditation. It's a muscle that we don't use. Once we discover it, it takes practice, and you build it up, and then you go, oh, now I can meditate. I can meditate on a noisy plane. I can meditate in Times Square. I basically walk around in contemplative state, which is essentially meditation, a waking meditation. And I'm walking around like that a lot of times.
And so many more people are. So, I mean, you can probably tell just in the last 3 years that what they call the field, the consciousness field, is getting brighter, stronger, more magnetic. So people are popping open spiritually and emotionally very quickly. It's kind of like popcorn. You sit it in your microwave and it takes a lot of heat and it's cold, it's dark and hard. And then all of a sudden they all pop open, and that's what I'm kind of seeing in consciousness.
I was one of those kernels that was like stuck in the corner of the pan, and it had to be microwaved and cooked and boiled, and then eventually, like, if you're like, that thing's dead, and then boop.
And then it's a totally different being.
Well, some people would say that.
But the field now is really supporting people in just opening up.
So explain that a little bit. What do we mean by that? And when we talk about the field and consciousness in general, and how it's, we hear, lots of in the spiritual community, you hear like, rising vibration of the earth and of people and stuff. What do we mean by that? What are we talking about?
Well, what we know of our world is this much, and the spectrum is this much. So our individual selves are kind of the shell of the unpopped popcorn's opening up. And then once that opens up, it entices others to open up, and the field gets more and more beautiful. You've got a bowl of white popcorn instead of that. And it's accelerating at a geometric rate. The opportunities for consciousness. I mean, I see people, I do personal sessions with people. I've seen people that are enlightened, and I just see it because I see them in oneness field. They're normal people, and when we're done with this session, they're still the same normal person, but they became the field. They let go of self and all the self traumas and miseries, and they became that. And yeah, they'll go back to themselves, but that has permanently changed them.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go back the same way.
Yeah.
And if you think there's millions of people all over the world, I mean, my book's in 13 languages. I get calls from China. People everywhere, even where you wouldn't expect them, are opening up in that field, that magnetic, come up here, folks. It's easier up here. It's just dynamite now. It's so great.
That's awesome. And, because I think even when we connect with the bigger consciousness and we raise our own, we're still individual beings in this realm, and we still have a personality. We still have the ego traits that develop, because of separation, because of the challenges that we had growing up. We had to build these capabilities. It's just they're different now. They're like my ability to speak, my ability to do a show, my ability to write and communicate came out of a child who wasn't heard, and no one would listen. And I was like, why not? Why not? So I became really good at that. Now, in a different embodiment, a different level, I still have those skills, those capabilities, and now I'm just using them for other things, but you still have access to them. You're just not doing it because you have to.
Right. There's just there's an invitation now out there that's unspoken. And I think if people just follow wherever, well, I'm going to watch that podcast, or I'm going to read that book that someone just said, they will be guided and they will be opened up. And it doesn't matter what religion they are or their belief or no religion. It doesn't matter. Human consciousness is awake. I actually did a class today. 350 people showed up because it was free.
That's still awesome. That's great.
It's a big class. Yeah. And what I told them, because I'm seeing it, is we've been on these wheels of karma where we had to learn things, and if we did something bad, we had to repay it this time. But if you can imagine that wheel of karma going clockwise here, and then there's a point here where it could go around again, but it isn't. It's going on a whole nother circle that's going counterclockwise, which is the feminine direction. And we're at this nexus point where some people will go around the old way, which is karma, and other people are totally escaping karma and going around in a different direction.
Yeah.
And the ones who escape, who are in karma and they can't get out because their oppression has been so hard or their traumas are so hard, they're just kind of, when they die, they're just going to go in this oneness field and hang out there for a while until the world is holier and better, and then they'll try to come back. But I'm seeing the energy of consciousness making karma obsolete, which I never even imagined. So that's going to hurry up everyone's growth.
Yeah, well, I guess that's good news in many ways. Is that kind of what people think about as like a timeline split?
Yes, yeah. People do talk about timeline splits, and of course there's not just one timeline, but that's a good way to see it, that the timelines that keep going around in circles are ending, and these new timelines that give possibilities unknown are beginning to open up.
Yeah, but karma is real. Karma is the way the universe, in different traditions they call it different things, but it is basically the things that you put out come back to you, and and the lessons that you haven't learned, you got to get repeated, and if you don't learn them, at some point they make them harder until you have to learn them.
Except, that's from the individual's perspective. Yeah. But as consciousness grows, we're more of a group conscious. I mean, we still live as an individual, but we have more of our awareness in, wait, I'm a lot more than just Jonette. Yeah. So Jonette doesn't have to keep doing that because this field, this more than Jonette, has already accomplished it. So we don't have to keep learning it anymore.
Well, all right. So that makes sense to me. When the time of the Buddha, 2,600 years ago, the level of consciousness in humanity was like at 90 or 80 or something. So, and it was very low. That's like that's very low. Like there's a lot of animals and wildlife that are higher than that, right?
Right.
So I think the what's the dragon lizard thing called? That's down in like Madagascar or someplace. You know those um I forget what they call it. Anyway, they're really
Like
mean
lizard
dragon
okay.
things. So like I'm drawing a blank of the name of it, but those guys calibrate it like 70 or something,
Okay.
which is kind of where Hitler calibrated. Right? So it's like really low. But so that was that back then. By the time Jesus came along, you know, the world calibrated a little bit higher, but it was like at 100. It's still really low. So you had one being who became fully enlightened and affected the whole world, but you had such a low level overall. Today, you know, the calibration level of the world is at over 200, right? It's moving up, and it's I've checked a couple times, and it's moved up a lot from the time Hawkins wrote his books. And so it doesn't take very many people to get, you don't have to become the Buddha, but it doesn't take too many people to become at a certain level of enlightenment to affect the entire field, because we have more of us doing it. Is that
absolutely
that's
the field.
Yeah.
The field is now kind of doing the work
Yeah.
so that the individuals don't have to so much. I mean, they have to, but the karma is too heavy. You know, they were so beat up they can't get through it, and they're still saved. They're saved by the field. They're not damned because they had a hard round.
Well, that's good news for some
Bad
pretty
people.
darn people. Yeah, pretty people who have made choices of separation and self, little self, as their choice. I mean, we are in a free, we are sovereign beings, and the way this realm has been created, we have choices, and the choices, it's not what will work or what the outcome is going to be, but the choices at every point in time. Do you choose love or faith, or do you choose fear? And it's basically like, and the outcome of that will be based on which one did you choose.
And those are the two timelines.
Those are two timelines. Yeah. So White Eagle and Mark, you've been channeling those two characters for a long time.
5 years. Yeah. 35 maybe.
Which is
yeah,
awesome. But there's been a lot of teachings that have come through you from them. Yeah. And so these are just, what we're talking about is consistent with everything that they've shared. It's just been gradual, because in the 80s, it was a lot lower than it is today. So probably the information they were giving was appropriate for that time.
So like today,
Yeah.
My class was the 13th dimension. I mean, most of us are around here in the fourth and fifth dimension, but the higher beings and the higher part of the field is preparing the 13th dimension, which is kind of, we've been in cycles of 12 year, 12 zodiac signs, 12 hours to the day, 12 months. And that's been linear. And what's happening now in the higher consciousness is those 12 are kind of exploding or imploding into one. But so there's this oneness field that wasn't available before, but it's not oneness that has no differentiation in it. It's oneness that has a 2 and a 3. You know, if you look at a clock and 12, it's got all the differentiation and it's still oneness. So that's where humanity's been climbing to. We had probably oneness when God, said, let there be light. And then we've had diversification. And now
Separation.
And now that separation is coming back, but it's not going to implode into the same oneness. It's going to implode into a oneness that includes the diversification. And that hasn't happened in humanity ever.
Yeah. So it's like consciousness is, forced separation, which forced these little individual consciousnesses to compensate for that separation and therefore learn. It's how consciousness learns. And so as we raise the overall consciousness and there's this coming back together, you don't lose all that learning. So all these things that have happened along the way, you learn the things, and that's how consciousness grows. That's my understanding at this point of the game, subject to change at any time, because every time I learn something new, I realize there's new things to learn. So
It'd be boring if there wasn't. Well, I want to talk because this was something I just channeled a week ago from White Eagle. I was doing a personal session, and White Eagle came in, and she actually typed up some of it, and it's about beingness versus doingness. So it's a few paragraphs. Can I read it?
Please.
All right.
Awesome.
So, beingness is an irrevocable right. However, humankind has been subjugated by being enticed out of their beingness into their doingness, their missions, their roles, their purposes. So, because we've all been, let me find my purpose. Our embodied beingness has sometimes become an empty shell while we leave it to do things and accomplish things and own things. The call now is to return into being so fully embodied that communication becomes telepathic and knowingness instantly spreads through the hive. And he goes on to say, meaningfulness is in the expression of each one's unique beingness and is never at the cost of someone else's beingness, which is a really important thing to remember. The world you have inherited has been one of manipulation where truth is not so easily known. When you do find truth, it has no bells or whistles or explanations as to why it's true. It's true because it is so. And White Eagle went on to say, so when people want to do something because, the because is always a flag that the doing something isn't coming from their presence. Because presence has no because. It just does something. There's one more bit. He says, it's why the yogis say it's realization, not attainment. And realization happens when all the false things fall away and you realize you are pure joy all the time. And so what I'm finding is more and more people I know, like you're in joy all the time. That's the indication of our success as a human being. So, I want the people who are listening to know that it's okay to be joyful because we've had this old thing that you had to suffer to be good. You had to be, a saint.
Sackcloth and ashes and whatever.
To be a saint, you had to have been killed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think first of all, I really everything I heard resonated. It sounded like okay, yeah, yes, check. I mean, I could test it and it would test positive because I already know it. It's like which I love. But I think the sometimes people who think about a spiritual path at some point or start exploring it, they think there's models out there, right? So you have the asceticism, and there's different traditions that have had certain, views on things. And look, the monasteries overall work, right? Like if you eliminate all temptation and you're with
necessary,
you're with a bunch of spiritual people and you're all working on the same thing, the odds of you moving up the conscious scale are much higher, because you're in that environment. Most of us in today's era, are not going to do that. We're living in the modern world. So how do we do it and live in the world? And that's the challenge of today. I mean, there's still very great uses. The monasteries have helped maintain the earth.
They held
it together
while we were,
and they continue to some degree. But now it's really a different challenge. It's really how do you embody it and live your life. And we have an airplane going over, but that's okay. So I think that's again, it's a misconception. Asceticism, refraining from different foods or sex or various other things, it can be useful at some point along the way, but it's more about the ability to not be attached to things. So if you can drop the attachment
to be poor,
right? And it's so I'm not attached. I am attached to beauty, and I really do. I have to say, like, I'm really attached to beauty, and it is what it is. But if I had to be in some other place, I would still be happy and joyful. I'm just even more joyful here. I'm saying it for the.
You can walk with a backpack in the woods of Australia and own very little and be so joyful. So it's nice to know that we can do both.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's really the attachment to it. So it's like, so if you're attached to, if sex drives you, like where you can't make choices because you have to do, then it's okay. Maybe a break would be a really good thing to learn that discipline. If drinking or food or other, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yes,
it's the attachment to it. So in moderation, it's not even moderation. It's where you can take it or leave it.
That's
and I can take it or leave it. Like I like a great steak, and if I don't have one, it's fine, and if I have one, it's fine. If I'm watching something I'm really involved with, or reading a book, or really involved, and I get interrupted, it's okay. I don't care. I just I'll come back to it, or it's like that was different not that long ago for me. So
so you have milestones to see how far you've come.
Well, it's funny. Like I think we don't. Just as we're the worst critics to ourselves internally as we evolve, as we make progress, I think it's common that we don't appreciate how much progress we've made.
Right.
Like we don't notice it, but people notice it, right? So I'm still just I'm working on this, working on that, working my plan, working my things, and doing my thing. And I'm just me, and I don't really notice the differences as much, right? Then other people will say, "Oh, well, I remember when this was the way you were." I'm like, "Okay, I don't remember that." It goes away.
So non-attachment is an important part. But I think if someone asked me what's the most important step in expanding your spiritual knowing, I would say how you started meditation is to quiet yourself and go to a class or something, do it in a group. It's easier to learn to meditate in a group because they hold the field. But I think all the gifts I have started because I was crazy out there extrovert when I learned to meditate. And so that's what I would say, start there.
Yeah, and it really is because Nietzsche was meditating for decades without me and trying to get me to do it, and I would do it every once in a while, but I'm like, what is the point of this?
Right.
And my mind's on deals and this, that, and the other thing. But once you get past that, you push through that, and you can quiet your mind. What you realize is your mind is cluttering up the field, so you're not aware of everything else, and so it's about just settling that mind down enough to where you can realize other things, which is all around you all the time, and we're just not listening because we're cluttering up with our monkey minds.
I have a good picture for that my guide gave me. He says, we have our heart here, and that's lovely. We have our head, and then our spirit's there. He said, so our head thinks it has to adjudicate everything between our heart and our spirit, and it has to understand. And my guide says, so they're still connected, but move your head here, so at least your heart has a direct connection to spirit that doesn't have to go through your head. Your head and your heart are still connected, and that has helped me so many times when I realized I wasn't going to spirit because my head couldn't go there. We'll just move it out of the way.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, because I'll speak firsthand. So my mind wants to interpret everything. My mind wants to explain everything, and it's why I read 400 books and try to understand all this stuff, because I needed to understand it. That was just part of, to quiet my mind, I needed to have the models. I needed to understand it.
Okay.
And so that was part of my process is, okay, I needed to have so I could look across the traditions. I could see what I'm experiencing, as I was experiencing something, but I was like, what is this?
Right.
And so I didn't have words for it. I didn't know what alchemy meant. I didn't know all these things. I'm like, oh, I did that. Like once I understood, oh, what is alchemy? Oh, okay. That's what I did here. I had soul retrieval, and I was like, oh, yeah, I did that. I was reading it in one of my teachers, Ivan Rados, who's an awesome mystic guy. He's up in British Columbia, but he does great work, especially helping you clear trauma and things.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did a bunch of stuff with him. But I was reading one of his books, and I was like, I read this whole section on soul retrieval. I'm like, that's what we did. like we did it. I did it
Yeah,
with
in a
him.
shamanistic way.
But it was like, oh, okay, because your soul will be like, okay, you left part of me over here and part of me over here, and you left part of me with that person because you gave them power. And as you bring that back, that soul retrieval, it's coming back to one.
I would remind people to let their heart choose, because they could go crazy thinking, oh, should I do this? Should I do hypnosis? I mean, there's so many offerings, especially in Sedona. There's a zillion really good practitioners. And then we get manic about finding our way.
Right.
So I would say, get quiet, think of 3 things you want to do, feel into that one. Is it that one, this one, or this one? So that we don't become manic and obsessive about our spiritual growth, because we can go
Sure.
through that, and especially if people are new and they want it now.
Right. Well, look, I went at this with an entrepreneur's lens.
Yeah, exactly. And
So as I'm writing my book about it, like part of it is like, okay, well, yeah, I did take that approach. I was like, okay, well, what is it? I didn't even realize this was like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm like, well, what do I need to know? Hence the reading and the study. What do I need to do? Okay, the practices, the meditation. So for me, it was all about understanding it and embodying it, but putting it together in like how an entrepreneur would do it, which can sound not the way the most spiritual people operate, but it's the way I think, and it's the way it just worked for me.
And it's your community.
Yeah, yeah. So it can work to that super successful CEO person. It's a pathway. It's one of many.
So I'm wondering if we can spend a few minutes and I can do a soul body fusion on the people who are watching this, because it doesn't have to be one-on-one.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be real time, because that will give them a taste of
what
it feels like to be embodied.
Let's do it.
All right.
And I get to do it in person.
Yeah, so I'm going to do it to the
Yeah, well, I'm just going to follow your lead. I'm going to follow your lead.
So I don't know how this works. It's just so amazing. But I'd invite everybody to have their hands open as if you're receiving your spirit, your higher self. And I'm going to have my hands down as if I'm kind of holding you on the planet. And it works just by intention. And so just take a couple deep breaths, everyone, and imagine that the part of your spirit that's been disembodied, and we all have it, is going to come more and more into your body. And you just feel your body, see if you feel any heat. Tingling in the hands is most common, and it's fine if you feel nothing. So we're going to do it for a few minutes. Be in your body with the intention. Soul body fusion, your spirit, your higher self. Your brain's job is just to check in on your body and see if it feels anything different. Notice that there's a stillness that comes over you and into you. Your hard edges melt as your spirit just moves in more and more. Sometimes people feel pain, and that's fine. Your soul would never hurt you. Your soul is endless, so you have been living with your soul inside yourself. But as we move into these new times, you can hold more and more of the higher dimensions and the higher frequencies. And that's what you're taking on now. Stay present in your body. Check on your feet, your hands. It's just your intention. You might feel nothing at all. We'll do this for about 1 more minute. Notice that your head's quieter and you can actually feel inside your feet, feel inside your hips. Everything starts with presence. Meditation helps open you and clear you, but presence brings that into your body where we can make a difference. So if you have time, you can pause this and spend a few more minutes. Usually I do 10 minutes and then I take a little pause and I do 10 more minutes. And it's just your intention to be more whole and see what happens. And it doesn't always happen right away, but I've had thousands of stories of amazing changes when people brought their spirit into their body. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had energy going like in the top of my head and in like coming in.
Yeah. So that shows you're already used to it. So people who haven't done it much, they don't feel anything at all. I have one story, and I don't know if you even want to include that, but I got a call from an American veteran who said, Jonette, I was in Iraq. I'm totally messed up. I'm on all these drugs because I'm having visions and seeing things and remembering when I was in a firefight. And he said, my counselor said, you can help me. And I said, come on over. So this American Army vet from the Iraq War comes over and I do a soul body fusion. He immediately becomes like this enlightened being. He looks like, I don't know, like Ra would be. And I'm blown away. And my goal was he was in this MK Ultra, this super soldier program. So he was implanted with things that would make him, be able to kill 30 people all at once. And my goal was to disempower those implants. It worked. So the next time I did a soul body fusion, I was being watched. I walk out of the house after I'd worked with Anthony, and there's a surveillance truck outside my quiet neighborhood with a huge satellite dish. They weren't even trying to hide, listening to see what I did that unhooked Anthony from all of his stuff. So it is powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful. And all that stuff is real, and we won't go down that rabbit hole today. But there's all the things that you think are conspiracies are probably we're seeing every day, and then these things are being revealed, and that's part of the waking up of the planet.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
that it's like when I wanted peace and love, the things that were in between that had to come up and surface. Those were my shadows. What's happening is now the shadows of Earth. So the untruthfulness, the fake things that institutions, politicians, all this stuff, it's all surfacing. They can't hide it anymore. And so it's like it's getting uncomfortable for those that are committed to that realm, that direction. They're going to fight hard, to prevent it, but they can't.
The light has already won. Goodness and oneness is really the only field.
Yeah.
So everything else has been a detour. Yeah, it's going to be, my guides say it's going to be a rough few years.
Yeah.
But they're calling it a soft awakening because I think a few years ago, destruction might have been in our cards. It is not in our cards. It's going to be a soft awakening.
Well, it's definitely.
But rocky, but not destruction.
Right. Yeah, it's all change can be rocky, but that's all the more reason to work on yourself, work on your own practice, get yourself first in the best place you can be, because you're of no use to anyone else if you aren't yourself embodied and healed. You really can't help anyone else, but you can help people if you become that. So it's the beingness. It's be who you're meant to be.
And then you're really a leader.
Yeah.
And you're a leader without opening your mouth because they can feel it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jonette, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Fun, and I love your studio.
We're gonna have to have a part 2 to go deeper into some of the stories. I didn't even get into some of the crazy adventures and the stuff. I mean, you've done the Himalayas and you've done South America. You've done all these crazy things.
Been to 90 countries and often leading groups.
Yeah, no, you've got you're like Indiana Jones in a female body, but spirituality as a thing.
Spiritual Indiana Jones.
But anyway, this was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, and we'll definitely do it again.
Thank you.
And get the book. Well, both books. All right, I'm gonna hold them up.
I'll hold up this one.
I'll put it in the video too. But this one is fascinating. This is my next read here. But we'll continue the process.
A normal person who is a business person who just kind of became more open. So you'll relate.
Everybody who became enlightened at some point wasn't a normal person at some point.
Yeah.
And then they became enlightened in different ways, and we put them on a pedestal because it's like
to make it unattainable to us.
Yeah, and I think it's attainable to everyone, but it takes consistency. It takes doing the work, right? So anyway, awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.